Hello and welcome to my first video in a very long time, I think. I'm actually not entirely sure now that I've said that. Today we're talking about how your coping mechanism might be hurting you, and I'm going to define coping mechanism as the thing that you do in order to avoid feeling bad, to distract yourself from a negative emotion. My esteemed teacher, Brooke Castillo, would call this buffering. So sometimes I may slip up and call it that too, because that's the word that defines this in my head, but coping mechanism. A lot of us eat as a coping mechanism. A lot of us drink. Some of us use drugs. Some of us use recreational sex, Facebook, Instagram, social media, things like that, video games, movies. Lots of Netflix, right? These are coping mechanisms. There are healthy coping mechanisms. I'm not really going to go into that, although I might touch on it just a little today. So first I want to tell you a story about how I destroyed my hair and kind of try to tie it into this subject. So those of you who don't know me well do not know I don't have any body in my hair. My hair was given to me without body. It is very fine. So in order to get the swoopy, poofy stuff that I think looks good on me, I tangle it. I tease my hair, which is purposeful tangling. And people will tell you that's the worst possible thing you can do for your hair. And I have heard that, and I've said, yeah, probably. Logically, that makes sense, but I'm not noticing any negative effects. And I wasn't, because the way I held my hair when I tangled it, I was basically hiding what I later found out was incredible damage. So I recently, a couple of weeks ago, went to grab my bangs, and I noticed there weren't many of them there here at the ends. Did a little recon work and found out that I have actually tangled and then torn off the ends of a lot of the hair in this area. So hopefully you can't see that change what I'm doing. But basically what I was doing in an attempt to look a certain way was actually really hurting my hair, and now it's going to take some serious time to grow that hair back. And I think that's what we are doing with our coping mechanisms. We don't see all the damage we're doing on the outside because of the way that we're living our lives, and because they are by definition something we do to distract ourselves. But there's a lot of damage going on, and it needs time to heal, and that healing process is not going to be necessarily fun. But it can be something that helps us pave the way for a much healthier existence and happier life moving forward. So I mentioned some of the coping mechanisms that a lot of us use when we're feeling negative emotions. And one of the reasons that they can be so damaging is that they have negative effects that tend to compound. So for example, if you're like me and you love to eat in order to avoid negative feelings of any kind, especially boredom, which is my top negative emotion, what tends to happen is you get that chemical rush. It is an actual physical chemical reaction in your body that you get a rush and distracts you from whatever you're feeling. And for me, it doesn't last very long, maybe half an hour. And then what happens is, because usually the things that I go to buffer, to cope with an emotion are high sugar, high fat, high calorie, all the things, I end up feeling guilty about eating that, bad about what I'm doing to myself. The compounding effect of food as a coping mechanism is typically weight gain or other negative health issues like high blood sugar, diabetes. There's tons of, bad teeth, bad skin. If you're eating eating to cope, typically it's not healthy food. But even if it is, it could be a weight problem or an issue with feeling like you're out of control, right? So it compounds. Now you feel the original negative emotion that started you eating, and then all of these other negative emotions, guilt, shame about your weight, self-hatred, that feeling of out of control. But what do you do when you feel negative emotions is you eat. You do the thing that started you down this negative emotion path in the first place. So it's compounds, right? And it happens with alcohol, it happens with food. Like there's a lot of shame in those things. So they have a net negative effect, and then we go back to them to deal with the negative effect, and we just keep this downward spiral. Another really horrible thing that's happening on the inside when we go to these things to avoid our feelings is that we start to believe that we need them, right? That we literally cannot handle our lives without them. And that's not the truth at all. But because we start to believe it, it feels really true. And we start to get to where we have a dependency on them. And then what we do as that belief becomes stronger and stronger, because we keep reinforcing it by going to that coping mechanism, is we have trained our brains to believe that we cannot actually work through our own emotions. And if you can't work through your own emotions, then your life is basically driven by you're trying to avoid the negative ones and influence your body to feel positive ones. The way to start to change this process is to start to work through your feelings. And that sounds a little nebulous, admittedly, because we're talking about things that are really abstract in your brain. But when you get to start working through your emotions and processing them without the coping mechanism, you start to not need the coping mechanism, or you start to utilize mechanisms that are actually good for you and healthy for you. You gain a lot of self-control back. You start to be able to actually create the emotions that you want to create. So the problem with the coping mechanisms is that they are going to dull you and keep you from ever going through this process, going through the process of discovering that you can control your emotions, and it's not happy-go-lucky positive thinking to do so. It's actually an incredibly self-aware and powerful thing to do that gets you closer to the truth, not further from it. If you'd like to hear more about that or work with me on that, please hit me up with a DM. And if you're looking forward to the holidays with some trepidation because you're worried about how you're going to feel, then please join my Facebook group. I have a free trainings with ETC. You can join that group. I will be doing a training on how to deal with your negative holiday emotions coming up. And it does not include all the eggnog, although I hope to have some. Okay, thank you for watching, everyone. Let me know if you have comments or questions, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.